Welcome to the deep dive.
Okay, so today our mission is really quite specific. We're looking at this very current and honestly pretty volatile diplomatic push regarding the war in Ukraine.
Yeah, we're diving into this proposal it's gained some traction about freezing the existing front lines,
Mm,
like right now.
exactly. And that phrase, freezing the existing front lines, that's really the heart of it, isn't it? It's where all the tension lies.
It absolutely is,
Mm.
because what the sources we've looked at show is the disagreement isn't just about where the line is drawn on a map. It's deeper.
More philosophical.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Is stopping the fighting now on the current lines just a temporary truce? Time for everyone to rearm. Or could it actually be the start of a real long-term sustainable peace? That's the fundamental split.
A pause versus a resolution. Big difference.
Huge. And it's why this whole thing is so high stakes.
Right. And what makes this deep dive feel, well, urgent is that this isn't just some abstract idea floating around anymore. It's got political momentum.
So we're going to look at the reactions we're seeing across the board. How Europe's shifting, how Kyiv is positioning itself, and Moscow's pretty clear response, too.
Which has been, well, less than enthusiastic.
To put it mildly. So, yeah, it feels like a really specific diplomatic moment that we need to unpack carefully.
Okay, let's start with the push itself. This idea, the front line freeze. Where's the political weight coming from now?
Well, the core idea is simple. Fighting should stop immediately. And critically, the current line of contact should be the starting point for talks.
Not the end point, the starting point.
Exactly. That framing is key. And it's now got backing from quite a few European leaders. We saw that statement, 11 signatures, including UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer.
So they're aligning with a position that, let's be frank, was initially really associated with U.S. President Donald Trump.
That's right. And to understand the significance now, you kind of have to look at Trump's recent history on this.
Right.
It hasn't been entirely consistent. No, not at all. I mean, earlier sources reports were claiming he was pushing Zelensky really hard behind the scenes.
Pushing him to basically cede large chunks of the Donbass, right? Donetsk and Luhansk, as a condition for any kind of deal with Russia.
Yeah, the reports mentioned a shouting match, though Zelensky, diplomatically just called the talks frank.
Frank is often diplomatic code for extremely difficult, isn't it?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So that history is important because it shows his initial instinct, or at least what was reported, was about significant territorial concessions from Ukraine.
Yes. A major giveaway, essentially.
So compare that to now, this freeze proposal. It feels like a shift, doesn't it?
It's a definite shift in the public positioning, yes. He later denied demanding Zelensky surrender territory, and now he's embraced this ceasefire idea based on the current lines.
He had that quote, didn't he? Let it be cut the way it is.
Yeah, referring to the region and adding that observation that 78% of the land is already taken by Russia, which is a stark way to put it, but it frames his current stance. Stop the fighting where it is.
So if you're listening, think about the politics here. Trump moving from allegedly demanding surrender to demanding a freeze. Well, it doesn't cost him much politically, does it? Makes him look like he wants peace now.
Right. And aligning with European leaders adds, international weight to it. It really forces the issue onto the global agenda. Stop the killing immediately.
It moved the goalposts from maybe an impossible demand for surrender to a more tangible call for a ceasefire based on the reality on the ground.
Precisely. The status quo. And getting European leaders on board makes it harder politically for Moscow to just dismiss it outright without looking like the obstacle to peace.
Okay, so that's Washington and Europe lining up. Let's
Yeah.
pivot to Kyiv. How does Zelensky see this idea of freezing things, potentially locking in Russian gains, even if it's meant to be temporary?
Well, Ukraine's position, and they reiterated this after Zelensky's recent U.S. trip, has been remarkably consistent. They're okay using the current line as a starting point for talks.
A starting point. Again, that emphasis.
Yes, but they've also consistently ruled out just withdrawing from the region altogether or, crucially, permanently signing away sovereignty over those areas. Zelensky said their position has not changed.
Which sounds like quiet determination.
It does. And the why behind that refusal, it boils down to a really core strategic fear. People call it the springboard problem.
Explain that. What's the fear?
The fear is that any territory Russia gets to keep, especially if it's somehow formalized even in a freeze, becomes a launch pad, a fixed base for future attacks, maybe years from now, once they've regrouped and rearmed.
So for Kiev, a freeze isn't necessarily peace. It's just A pause button for Russia.
Exactly. A timeout that Moscow could use to its advantage later.
Okay, let's get practical for you listening. Geography matters here. A lot.
Sure.
The historic Donbas region, Luhansk and Donetsk oblasts, isn't the same as the current front line.
Not at all. Think of it like Russia controls most of Luhansk. They've made significant gains there. And they hold a big chunk of Donetsk, too.
But not all of it.
No. Ukraine still controls roughly a quarter of Donetsk. And importantly, this isn't just empty land.
What's in that quarter?
Key cities, big industrial and administrative centers. Sloviansk, Kramatorsk. These are places Ukraine has fought incredibly hard to keep.
So freezing the current line protects those cities, right? It doesn't mean Ukraine pulls out of Kramatorsk.
Precisely. And that's the critical difference between this freeze proposal and what Russia actually wants, which is a complete Ukrainian withdrawal from the entire Donbas region.
Got it. So a freeze may be acceptable as a step one. Total withdrawal. That's the non-starter for Kyiv.
Absolutely. It preserves those key holdings.
All right, let's bring Moscow into this. Despite this sort of growing international alignment on the freeze idea, Russia's reaction was, well, pretty swift and negative.
Immediate and pretty absolute, yeah. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov didn't mince words. He basically dismissed the whole idea of halting things at the current line.
How did he frame it?
He explicitly called it a temporary ceasefire. That choice of words temporary is really telling, isn't it?
It signals they don't see it as a path to real peace, just a pause.
Exactly. Just a tactical pause unless it meets their bigger long-term goals. Which is why you saw those European leaders calling Russia's diplomatic moves stalling tactics. They see it as Moscow playing for time or trying to reshape the agenda.
And Moscow keeps bringing up these root causes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They insist that before any real peace deal, the root causes of the conflict have to be addressed.
Mm-hmm. And that's where this whole freeze proposal really hits a brick wall.
Because root causes is basically Kremlin code
For their maximalist demands. Things that go way beyond just keeping the land they currently occupy.
Okay, what are we talking about specifically?
Two main things, consistently. First, they want full Russian sovereignty recognized over the entire Donbas region. That includes the parts Ukraine still holds, like around Kramatorsk.
So they want Ukraine to just hand those over.
Effectively, yes. And second, they demand the complete, permanent demilitarization of Ukraine.
Wow. Okay, that second one. Demilitarization. That's asking Ukraine to essentially give up its ability to defend itself. It's huge.
It fundamentally challenges their sovereignty and security. And Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, he confirmed this position hasn't changed. He specifically mentioned Russia insists on the complete withdrawal of Ukrainian troops from all of those eastern regions.
So just to make it crystal clear for you listening, Kyiv and the West are proposing talks starting from the current reality on the ground, the freeze. Moscow is saying, no, first you meet our biggest demands, full control of Donbas, Ukraine demilitarized, and then maybe we can talk seriously.
That's the fundamental disconnect, worlds apart.
Okay, given that massive disconnect, this next bit seems almost, well, paradoxical. There's talk of a potential high-level meeting, a direct one.
Yeah, reports that Trump is planning or hoping for direct talks with Putin, possibly in Budapest.
Budapest, interesting choice.
Yeah.
And a Trump-Putin meeting, that would be significant. The last one was at Alaska.
Alaska, yeah. August. Didn't achieve much concrete, but politically, it sort of ended Putin's status as a complete international pariah, didn't it? Brought him back to the table, at least visually.
So Budapest summit could be a big diplomatic step.
Mm.
But are we actually getting close to that?
Well, the path there seems littered with obstacles, major hurdles showing up even before the main event, like that preparatory meeting that was supposed to happen.
Between U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Lavrov.
Right. The timing for that seems to be slipping constantly. No date's been locked down. It keeps getting pushed back, or at least not finalized.
And the Kremlin. Are they helping build momentum?
Quite the opposite. They seem to be actively playing down expectations, pouring cold water on it almost.
How so?
Peskov had that quote, something like, "We cannot postpone what has not been finalized."
It's a bit dismissive, right? Signals that Moscow's not fully committed yet, maybe deeply skeptical unless their conditions are met up front.
Okay. But beyond the scheduling and the political signaling, there's a huge practical legal problem here, isn't there? Oh, yeah. A massive one. The travel problem.
The ICC arrest warrant.
Exactly. Putin is subject to an International Criminal Court arrest warrant for alleged war crimes. Hungary is an EU country and an ICC signatory.
So for Putin to fly to Budapest for a meeting,
Hungary would have to consciously decide not to execute that warrant. And other EU countries might have to let his plane fly through their airspace, also potentially violating their obligations under the Rome Statute.
that's not just politics, that's international law clashing with diplomacy.
It's a major test of EU legal commitments versus the desire, perhaps, to facilitate peace talks. Allowing Putin into Budapest sets a pretty challenging precedent.
And are we seeing a unified European front on this?
Not at all. It's already splitting. Poland and Lithuania, countries very sensitive to this conflict, have apparently signaled quite clearly if Putin's plane enters their airspace, they'll uphold the warrant.
Wow. They'd force the plane down.
The implication is they'd act on their legal duty. They're prioritizing the rule of law.
But not everyone agrees.
No. On the other side, you have, for instance, Bulgaria's foreign minister, Georgiev. He hinted they might be willing to, let's say, look the other way.
What did she say?
Something along the lines of, when efforts are made for peace, it is only logical that all sides contribute to making such a meeting possible. It's that classic tension. Pursue peace talks, even if it means bending legal norms.
So a potential summit, a major diplomatic event, could literally depend on whether Poland or Lithuania lets Putin's plane fly over.
It sounds like something out of a thriller novel, but yeah, that's the kind of high-stakes, logistical, legal, and political tightrope they're walking right now. #outro.
So if we try and pull all these threads together for you, the listener, what's the bottom line? The core impasse, it really hasn't shifted. It's still about the fundamental definition of peace.
Yeah. You've got the U.S. and key European players saying, look, let's start with the reality on the ground. Freeze the front line. That's the necessary first step.
An urgent starting point. But then you have Moscow still driven by those maximalist demands we talked about. Sovereignty over all of Donbas, demilitarization.
Right. And from their perspective, this frontline freeze, it's just a tactical pause, Lavrov's temporary ceasefire. It doesn't address what they call the root causes.
And it feels depressingly familiar, doesn't it? This isn't the first time we've hit this wall.
No. We saw that planned Putin-Zelensky summit get shelved before, remember? Because Russia insisted on dealing with the root causes first. It's the same pattern.
The actual line on the map isn't the ultimate problem. It's the intention behind stopping there. Is it step one towards negotiation or just a breather before trying to achieve total victory?
That's really the core takeaway for you today, I think. You have this surprisingly broad international support now for a ceasefire based on the current lines. You have Trump signaling he's willing to meet Putin, maybe even in Budapest, despite the hurdles.
Seems like momentum, maybe?
Maybe. But if Moscow truly views that freeze only as a temporary stop, a way to regroup without conceding on their biggest demands, well, what diplomatic tool do we actually have? What mechanism exists to bridge that enormous gap?
How do you get from a temporary truce, which Kiev fears is just a Russian tactic, to addressing Moscow's maximalist demands without Ukraine basically surrendering territory it still holds and its future security?
Exactly. That's the fundamental question. Is there a bridge? Or is this just setting up the next phase of the conflict after a pause? That's what you need to keep watching, because the answer tells us if real peace is even possible right now.